Hey, what's up guys, back again with another video in the Spigot series. This time we're going to continue our Armor Stand GUI plugin and add some more stuff to it. Alright guys, so before we get started adding some more code to our Armor Stand GUI plugin, let's go ahead and check out what we finished last episode so we can begin planning what we want to do next, okay? So if we do /AS to open the Armor Stand command, we could, test this out, we can close it. We could also click the create menu, which is going to open up this thing here. And for some reason there's 9 or 18 slots instead of 9. That's kind of weird. Let me check that out real quick. If I go back here, Armor Stand, if we go to the create menu, yeah, for some reason it's 9 slots. I don't know why that is. Interesting. But yeah, so anyway, so we have our options here. We can click the arms option. They can choose if they want to have arms or not. So we need to add the functionality for this and make it also so they cannot move stuff around. Thing we need to do. Let's see what else. We need to set this up so they can create and actually delete the creation of their armor stands. So that would be the main part actually. So they can create stuff and delete stuff. And then of course we actually need to add the functionality for the armor stand options here so that whenever they click yes, then it'll actually add it to the armor stand. Okay, so let's start adding everything so we can make some progress here. Okay, so if we go back here, the first thing I want to do really is make it so they cannot move items around inside of the inventory, okay, the option inventory. So we can do that by adding a inventory here to our if statement thing, so they can check and see basically if they are operating inside of a certain inventory. In this case it would be the confirm menu inventory, then do not allow them to move items around. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is make sure we need to check and see if they're in that inventory. So we can do e.get inventory .get title and then dot equals ignore case, so that will check to see if the title is equal to a title that we provide. And I've already added the confirm menu title up here, so we can go ahead and add that below. So confirm menu like this. Alright, so that will add that for us. So let's open this up. So inside of here we can now have our switch statement, which will check and see which item they selected, of course. So we'll be doing that in a second, but first, before we do that, it froze here. I don't know why it froze, but it froze. Yeah, there we go. So before we do that, I want to add it so they cannot move items around, like I said. So we can do set cancel to true. So that will cancel them being able to move stuff around, okay? So yeah, like I said, we want to add the switch statement here, which is going to be able to check and see which item they clicked on inside of the inventory so we can know what to do next, right? So we can check and see, well, we need to provide what we're checking here. So e.get current item, get current item .get type, so this will get the material of the item. And so our first case, let's check and see if we go back here. Our first case is going to be, /AS. It's going to be the yes and the no option, okay? So that'd be the green wool and the red wool. So those are the options we want to check. So green wool, so that's one option. And so if they select green wool, we want to have something happen. So we want to say something like this. So player.send message option confirmed. We'll just say that. So that will confirm the option that they selected. And also when they select it, we also want to make it so that it closes the little menu, so they don't keep the inventory open once they selected the option, so it goes back to the other menu. So we'll just simply do plugin.open create menu, so that will go back to the other menu. So and then we just provide player as a parameter, so that will open that menu. And so yeah, that will do that. So let's add the delete one also, or the cancel one. So that'll be the red wool. So red wool. And so we'll say player.send message canceled option selection, or just canceled option, that's fine. And so we can simply also go back with this one too. So open create menu player. Okay, so now that we have those options, it's going to make it so that they can't move the items around, of course, because we added this piece of code. But also we can add the functionality whenever they click the green and red wool buttons, right? But that's kind of simple, right? We want to actually make it so that it actually makes the armor stand, glow or whatever it's checking, right? And also we need to check and see which option they're even selecting, right? We haven't even done that, because if we open up a confirm menu, we could be checking any of these 4 options here that we have displayed here. We could be any of these 4 options, or actually 3 in this case. We're going to ignore armor for now. So it could be any of these 3 options. So we need to be able to check and see which option we're checking against, because if they click confirm, we want to make something happen, right? Like make the armor stand glow, right? but what if they select the base option? So we want to be able to discern which one they selected, right? So we can do that with an if statement. So let's try that out. So we can do that with a simple if statement, checking to see which item they clicked on inside the inventory, because of course if we go back here, we were able to put the item that they're checking. Like basically, let me show you here. So if we do /AS, we can see that if we want to select arms, we click arms, and then it shows the arms logo also here, right? Because it also shows the beacon one. Whenever we click the beacon option or the glow option, it shows the beacon inside of the menu also. So what we can do here is go inside of here, the menu, and check and see which look inside the menu and check and see if those items are in the menu, okay? So we can see if it contains a beacon, contains a armor stand, contains a base, or what's it called, a stone slab, right? So we can check and see. So I'm going to do Control X to cut what we have so far. So if e.get current inventory or get clicked inventory dot contains, we can check and see which we can provide an item stack here and then check and see if that item stack is inside the inventory. Or we can do a material also in case we want to check a material. So we're just going to do material just to keep it simple. So we'll do material.armorstand. So that's one of the options we have, obviously, because if we go back here, we can see that armor stand and beacon and stone slab are all options, right? So if it's an armor stand, then we want to paste this here, the code that we have, and then we want to do something differently depending on what they selected, right? So if they selected armor stand and they click the green wool, meaning yes, then we want to make the armor stand actually have arms, right? Because that's the arms option. But how do we do that, right? How do we make the armor stand have arms? Well, we actually have to have an armor stand to edit, right? Because of course when you create an entity, you can call upon methods onto that entity so that you can change the properties of the entity, right? But we have no entity that we created to actually change, right? So I was thinking, right, how do we change or how do we create an armor stand that we can just change anytime we want to, right? So for example, we can just make one right here, right? Whenever they click the main menu or maybe even the create menu, that means they want to create an armor stand, right? So might as well make it here, right? So armor stand, we'll call it the stand is equal to new, well actually it wouldn't be new, it would be player.create or get world.create spawn entity, not create, a spawn entity, and then we have the location, so player.get location, and now we want to choose the entity, so entity armor stand, oops, not that one, entity.armor stand. Okay, I'm getting bullied by this thing. There we go. So entity armor stand. So that alone will create a armor stand at the player's location, right? We have an error here for some reason. Oh yeah, because we need to cast this to armor stand. Armor stand, right? So that will create the armor stand, right, and spawn it in front of the player whenever they click create menu. And so if we want the player to be able to edit this, of course we can set the visibility to invisible because, or false. So we want to make it false because we want to set it to be invisible until they're done, changing the properties of the armor stand, like making it glow and stuff like that. So for now it's going to be false, right? But let's say we want to make this have arms, right? Whenever they click the green wool, we want to make it have arms. We can't actually call upon stand or armor stand, like the the stand variable that we just created here. This armor stand is called stand, right? We can't call upon stand here because stand is in a different scope. If you know anything about scopes, and whenever you're working with Java programming, if you have something, a variable, like for example if statement, right? If you create a variable inside of an if statement, that variable can be only accessed inside of that if statement. It cannot be accessed outside of the if statement, okay? So what we need to do is declare a public variable or a global variable, meaning it's outside of any scope. Like these variables here, these are public, or actually not public, but they're in a global scope because they can be accessed by any if statement or anything like that, okay? So how do we do that, right? Because we only want to create an armor stand whenever they click create menu or select the create menu, right? So what I thought of is pretty cool actually. We can make something called a hash map, right? And a hash map is basically like an array list, except that you can store two values at once that correspond with each other, okay? It's called like a key pair basically. But what we want to do is create the hash map inside of our main method here, or our main class, just because why not? We could make it in this class here, but I want to keep it in my main class just so we can access it wherever we want in the future, okay? So we're going to make it right here. We'll call it make a new hash map. So hash map. And a hash map is going to take two different data types, okay? And they can be different. They can be classes, not just primitive data types. They can be anything, right? So we could do a string. We could do a player, the player object. So the first variable, so the first value in the hash map, we're going to do player. So we could store the player that has the armor stand, right? And then the second value is going to be the armor stand, okay? So we could store an armor stand entity inside of the hash map, okay? So what this is going to do effectively, well, let's make it first, then I'll explain it. So we'll just call this armor stands like that. So this will be basically a variable that holds everyone's armor stands, okay? So that's pretty cool. And so equals new hash map, just like that. So that will create a new hash map, which is going to be able to hold key value pair. So this will be the key, this will be the value. But the point is they're able to hold two variables in one, basically. Like it's like an array, basically. It's a special type of array that is able to hold two things in one little spot, okay? That's a simple way of explaining it. So basically what we're going to use this for is whenever they create a new armor stand or open the create menu, it's going to create an armor stand and assign it to a certain player and then store it into this armor stand's hash map. So that means we can grab this value of the armor stand and the player wherever we want to, and now it's going to be global because it's not inside of, you know, an if statement or anything. It's going to be right here in the main class out in the open, okay? So that means we can access it wherever we want to, and so it's going to be pretty useful, okay? So we can create an armor stand inside of the create menu and then store it in this hash map for whenever we want to use it in the future, okay? So if you don't know what I mean, or if you're confused what hash maps are, you can do some extra research if you want to. But it's pretty simple. You'll get the hang of it. So let's go ahead and get started. So whenever they click the create menu, right, that means, well, if you go back here, /AS, the create menu is this right here. That's the button that opens the create menu. So click this, and now the create menu is open, right? So whenever that happens, we also want to create an armor stand, right? Because whenever they click this green button here, that's going to spawn the armor stand, right? Or set it to be visible. You'll see. But anyway, so that's going to create the armor stand. If we click the red button, it's going to delete the armor stand. But of course, we need an armor stand to actually create or delete. So we can do that as soon as they click the create inventory button, right? So let's go ahead and make that here. So armor stand, we'll call it stand, is equal to new, well actually not new, of course. I keep forgetting. So player.getWorld.spawnEntity, player.getLocation, so that will be get the player's location. And then of course we would have the entity that we want to spawn, so armor stand in this case. So that will create the new armor stand, of course, and as you know, we need to cast it. And also, as you know, we cannot access any other scope. So what we want to do is store it inside of our hash map. So if we want to access our hash map, we would do plugin, because that's a reference to the main class, and our hash map's inside of the main class. So plugin dot armor stands. Oh wait, we can't access it because it's not public. So we need to make this public, meaning it can be accessed in any class, basically. So plugin dot armor stands right here, as you can see. So armor stands. And so we can do put, that's a method that this comes with, where you can store a key value pair. So as you can see here, it wants a player parameter and also an armor stand player, which is something that we can provide. So we'll do put, and the first parameter is going to be player, like I said, so we'll just put player just like that, because that's the player that made the armor stand, right? And the next is going to be the actual armor stand object, so we can just plug in stand, which we just created a second ago, right? So that will add the armor stand that we just created inside of the armor stand's hash map, right? But let's say for some reason they already opened the create menu and created an armor stand, and they just closed the menu, right? That means that they already have an armor stand stored inside of the hash map, right? So basically whenever they open the create menu again, it's going to try making another armor stand, right? And it's going to store the second armor stand inside of our hash map, and that's going to be kind of useless because they already created one. So now the same player is going to have two armor stands, right? So what we want to do is check and see if they already have an armor stand inside of our hash map before we make a new one. So we can do that with if plugin.armorstands.contains key. We can either check to see if the key or the value doesn't actually matter. So we can say if it contains a key. Actually, we want to use key because we can basically check and see if that certain player is already in the hash map. So if the armor stand's hash map contains the key of player, meaning the player's name, then that means they already have a hash map, right? So we don't need to do anything. But if we put an exclamation mark in front, that means it's the opposite of what this would be. So that means it's if the player does not have a key of themselves in the hash map, meaning the player is not in the hash map, then go ahead and create one with this code here, okay? So that's going to do all of that. And so we're not going to have an else because nothing else is going to happen if there is a key, meaning that it's already in the hash map, so we don't need to do anything else, so we'll just leave it like that, okay? So hopefully you understand what's happening here. We're just creating a new armor stand and then putting it inside of the hash map if they don't have an armor stand inside of the hash map already, okay? So now that we stored an armor stand inside of the hash map, we can actually go back here to this green wool selection. So meaning if they click the green wool, that means they want the arms option because that's what we're selecting here. So that means that of course that they want the arms, right? So what we need to do is get the armor stand that we want to add arms to, right? Because there's a method, if you remember a couple episodes ago when we learned armor stands, we remembered that there's a method that we can use to give an armor stand arms. And so we need to be able to access the armor stand object to be able to call upon that method, right? So let's try retrieving the armor stand that we have stored in our hash map and, editing it, right? Or calling upon that method, okay? So let's go ahead and create an armor stand here. We're not going to create a new one. We're just going to create a variable reference. You'll see. So Armor Stand stan is going to be equal to, and then now instead of creating a new one, we want to grab the one we already have stored inside of our hash map. So we can do plugin dot armorstands dot get, and then we can provide the key. So in this case, it'll be the player's name. So now it's going to search through our hash map and see if that player's name is inside of the hash map, and it probably is because we create one whenever they click the create menu option. And so now that it found it, it's going to store it inside of this variable here. And so now we can do stand dot arms, so set arms, and then we can say true. So that's perfect, right? It's going to add the armor stand to have arms, right? So one thing I want to do is actually, before we run this piece of code here, let's check and see if the the hash map has the player stored inside of it before we actually retrieve the data from the hash map, because maybe it doesn't even have it inside of it. So we want to check and see before we do that. So we can do if let's see here, plugin dot armorstands dot contains key player. So if the player is inside of the hash map, then we want to make this piece of code here. So also, so that will basically check and see in case an error happens, right? Because we don't want to access a hash map if the player is not even inside the hash map. We can't do that. It doesn't make sense, right? So one thing you might not have thought of, let's say they select the green wool, right? Meaning they want the arms, and then they close the menu, but they change their mind, right? So they open the menu again, thinking that they can just click the red wool and then it'll take the option off their armor stand, right? And we won't actually do that because all we're doing here is sending a message and then opening the create menu. So let's add the functionality for that, right? So we'll do if plugin. Actually, all we need to do is copy this here, basically, right? So if, and then we could change it to be false in this case, right? Because instead of being true, they don't want to have arms, so we'll just set it to be false, okay? So now that we added a good amount of stuff, let's test it out so we can just get a good idea of what's happening and what we got so far. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back, so let's test it out. And nothing happened. It opened the create menu. That's weird. It's blank for some reason. Maybe I'm getting an error. Okay, for some reason we get the error, but I think I know what it is. So basically, whenever we changed it from to be 18 to 9, I don't know why it was 18. I don't know if I did that by accident. I didn't realize, but I guess I did. But anyway, so I changed it to 9, and so it's a null pointer exception because we're trying to put 2 items in slots that don't even exist anymore, okay? So what we need to do is change this from 6 to 7 instead, so it'll put it, in the first row instead of 2 rows that are, instead of a row that doesn't exist, right? Because it only goes to 9 now, and it can't even go to whatever they were before, 16 and 17. It only goes to 9, so that will fix that. So, oh, I see what the problem is. It's very simple. We never broke it, so we need to do /break or just break after the switch statement, okay? So let's try testing everything out now, finally. Okay, now it's reloaded, so we'll test it out. And let's open this. And so what it does, it creates a new armor stand whenever we click the create menu, so that worked. And so now we can select yes or no, so we click yes, and now it says option confirmed. So if we close this, it should have gave it arms. And awesome, it did. So as you can see here, we have arms. So that's perfect, right? It works. So let's try making it not have arms at the same time. And so we click no, and now it does not have arms. So that works awesomely, okay? So one thing we want to do probably is make it so that the armor stand doesn't appear until we're done, right? So how do we know if it's done or if we're done? We can just click the green and then we'll make it appear, right? So until we're done, we want to make it be invisible, okay? So we can do that whenever we create it. So whenever we create the new armor stand, we can simply do stand dot set visible to false. So that will make it invisible. And then whenever we click the the green wool here at this part right there, that means that we want it to be visible and that we're done. So what we can do is make it visible and then also remove it from the hash map because we're done with that armor stand. And then we can create a new armor stand and add it to the hash map whenever we want to add a new one, right? So yeah, we need to make we need to do that. So let's find the create menu, create menu, and we want to add the options for the green and red wools, right, that we have here. Because we need to add the options for those two, so let's do that. So case green wool. Okay, and what that's going to do is player.send message created armor stand. So that will create the armor stand, of course, and then we'll do plugin dot. We'll just close the inventory. So player.close inventory. So that will close the inventory. But before we do that, we want to do. Let's see here, we're going to actually check and see if the player exists inside of the hash map. So if plugin .armorstands.contains key player. And then we want to do what we have down here, where we get an instance here. So we'll just copy this actually. So if the player is inside of the hash map, then we want to get an instance of the armor stand, and then finally set it to visible. So that will make the armor stand visible. And then finally, since we're done with it, we can remove the armor stand from the hash map. Okay, so we could simply do, we'll do it inside of here. So plugin .armorstands.remove player. So that will remove the player in the hash map, or the player in the armor stand from the hash map. Okay, so that will do all of that for us. And so we want to do also the red wool, so case red wool. So this will be kind of similar. So player.sendMessage deleted armor stand, so that will delete the armor stand that they're trying to create. And then likewise, we want to do all of this here basically, except for a few differences. So we do want to close the inventory when we're done. We also want to get the armor stand, and we want to delete the armor stand. We want to make it not exist anymore. So we could simply do stand.remove. Yep, that will remove it, I think. That should remove it. If we do Control Q, we can actually see the documentation for it, so it'll tell us everything. So let's say, yeah, mark the entity's removal. So that should remove it, okay? Pretty cool. So that will remove it for us. And also, we want to remove it from our hash map. So that this line here will do that for us, okay? So that should do all of that for us. So let's test everything out, okay? Oh yeah, we forgot to break it again. I'm so stupid. So we need to go back here, wherever it is. Yeah, we're here. And then we need to break. Just like that, okay? So sorry for that mistake again. I'll restart and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's test it out. So we'll do /as, and then we open the menu. And then we open the create menu, and that's going to open create a new armor stand. But as you can see here, it's invisible now, because we added that, set visible to false code. So now we'll open it again, and so we'll add arms this time. So yes. And so since we're done with our armor stand, we can click this green button here, and then now it's going to set to be visible here. And as you can see here, we have arms. So that works awesomely, okay? So that's how you add armor stands, and then set the armor stand to have arms and stuff like that. So now that we set all of that so that the armor stand is invisible until we're done and everything, we added all the main functionality. Let's add the functionality for the glow option and also for the base option, so that we can add those options for the player. So we'll go back here to our thing here, and we need to find it. So the part where we check and see if it's the material of armor stand, we also want to have an else for that. So we'll just pretty much just copy all this and we'll paste it here. Instead of if, we'll do else if. So if it's material.beacon, meaning it's for the glow option, that means we want to do something differently. So we'll check and see all of this. Instead of set arms though, we want to set glow, stand.setGlow to true. So that will do that. But also here, we want to set glow to false. So that will do that. Okay, and then finally, we want to add another option for the base plate, okay? Right here. Yeah, right here. Okay, cool. So that will add that for us. And we want to do, let's see here. Instead of armor stand, we want to do stone slab. Just like, oops, nope, not that one. Stone slab, just like that. And so we want to set base plate to true. And then we're going to set base plate to false right here. So hopefully that will do that for us. So let's test it out. Okay, so let's test everything out. So we'll do /as. Alright, we'll click the create menu. We'll add some arms here. Okay, we're going to remove these arms because I don't want them anymore. We're going to add a base plate. We're going to add some glow. And then we're done. So we're going to click complete and create. And now it's going to add it for us. As you can see here, we have a armor stand that we have created with a base plate. It's glowing, but with no arms, right? So it did everything we wanted it to do. So that's pretty awesome, right? Hopefully you like that. So that's actually pretty much it for this episode. We added a lot of stuff, to be honest. And hopefully I didn't go too fast, especially with the hash maps and all that. But it's a pretty simple concept once you get the hang of it and all that. But yeah, so we're done with the main part of our plugin now. Actually creating the armor stand. But next episode we're going to finish off. It's going to be the last episode in these 4 parts. But we're going to continue after that with other stuff, like other Spigot stuff, okay? So anyway, next episode we're going to add the inventory system, or the armor system, where they can select what armor they want to put on to their armor stand. And then finally we're going to add some finishing touches, like some configuration options. And then after that, episode after that, we're going to actually show you how to upload your new plugin to the Spigot resources section, okay? So that's going to be pretty cool. So hopefully you like all of that. I understand this episode might have been too hard, or maybe I didn't explain it good enough. But if you have any questions at all, you can ask in the comment section below. I'll be glad to help you. or you can join our Discord server. We have a link in the description where you can join our Discord, hang out with us, whatever you want to do. And by the way, we have a new Minecraft community server, so if you want to join our Minecraft server, hang out with us, play with us, anything you want to do, you could do that. The IP will be in the description for you, so make sure you check it out. So yeah, so also finally, the last thing is that we have all of the code from today's episode inside of the description also. There's a link there in case you want to check it out for future reference, okay? So now that I'm done with all that, I'll see you next episode. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.